Odell Beckham Jr. has officially been released by the Cleveland Browns, and 49ers general manager John Lynch was asked about his availability this morning on the radio. That's what we're getting into on today's show. But first, I want to see where the Niner gang stands on this. If you want OBJ on the 49ers, hit that thumbs up icon, like the video, and let's start today's show. You're watching the 49ers Report by Chat Sports. I am your host, Chase Sr. I hope all of you are getting set to have a fantastic weekend. Monster game with NFC West implications going down on Sunday at Levi Stadium in Santa Clara between the Niners and the Arizona Cardinals. We'll get to Kyler Murray's injury status here in just a few moments, but first, the news of the day. Odell Beckham Jr. has been released and let go by the Cleveland Browns. Ian Rappaport breaking that news this morning on a Friday. He said this on Twitter. Sources, the Browns are releasing star wide receiver Odell Beckham Jr. as the two sides came together on a resolution to end his Cleveland tenure. At long last, he's out and he'll head to waivers. So this, in turn, will end Odell Beckham Jr.'s rocky 2.5-year run with the Cleveland Browns. There were so many expectations for him after that trade that was made with the New York Giants for him to continue being one of the best wide receivers in the league. He still has talent, but really, this is a mercurial superstar who suffered a lot of injuries and has a lot of baggage with him as well. According to reports, he had cut off communications with Kevin Stefanski. He had told the team this week, according to additional reporting, that basically OBJ wasn't a part of the team. They couldn't reach a deal for him on NFL trade deadline day. He also basically had no relationship left with the quarterback of the franchise in Baker Mayfield. Now, OBJ will hit waivers. As for the NFL waiver order, the 49ers might have a chance to claim Odell Beckham Jr. on waivers. The Lions will have the first crack, the Dolphins followed by the Houston Texans, the Jacksonville Jaguars, as well as the New York Jets. Here's where it starts to get interesting and where the Niners enter the equation. Giants, Washington Football Team, Philadelphia Eagles, Seahawks, and Bears are your 6 through 10 teams on the NFL waiver order. And there you see the San Francisco 49ers at 12, behind the Atlanta Falcons and ahead of the Minnesota Vikings, Indianapolis Colts, and New England Patriots. Odell Beckham Jr., in my opinion, can still play, and the teams on that list, some of them at least ahead of San Francisco, are in need of a star at the wide receiver position. Is Odell Beckham still a star? That's for the 49ers to decide. That's also a decision that John Lynch is going to have to think about, and he was asked about Odell Beckham Jr.'s availability on KNBR this morning. He said this, quote, and of course it was vague because you're going to get fined for tampering if he goes into length about OBJ. Quote, we're always trying to make ourselves better. If we can, we will. I'll leave it at that for strategic reasons. Those strategic reasons, the reasons that I just got done discussing. We're going to continue to break down the potential of OBJ coming to San Francisco because I think he'd help make this offense better, but of course he comes with a lot of baggage. The production has dipped. Injury issues have really been a big problem in that production going downhill. But first, Niner gang, you got to chime in. Sound off in the comment section right now. Should the 49ers be interested in OBJ? Type OBJ for yes, type no BJ for no. This is going to be the pinned comment on today's video. So if you get hit with that YouTube ad break, scroll on down, get your votes in, and by the time you're done with that, we'll be back. As for OBJ's contract situation, it is really interesting, but you have to consider that there's always a way to do some salary cap gymnastics to make something like this work. OBJ's contract situation. So the Browns are converting Beckham's base salary into a signing bonus to lower his cap number in an attempt to save money for their franchise. Once the contract is finalized, expected to be anytime in the next few days, Beckham will be released. He can't be claimed on waivers until next week. Here's where the 49ers come back into play. Teams must submit their waiver claims for OBJ by 4 o'clock Eastern on Monday. And all of those teams ahead of San Francisco are going to be able to submit their waiver claims. If the 49ers pass on them, then it's up for the other teams in the NFL to submit a claim for OBJ. That move cannot be made official, and he cannot join another team until next week. As for his contract, this is where it stands right now. There, of course, could be ramifications. There could be a restructure, but as of right now, his base salary for this year in 2021, $14.5 million. The next 2 years in 2022 as well as 2023, it goes down to $13.75 million. Then he'll be an unrestricted free agent in 2024 at the age of 32. So if San Francisco were to bring him in on the current construction of this deal, he'd be under team control over the next couple of seasons. Yesterday, there were some conflicting reports about the guaranteed money on his contract. No guaranteed money on OBJ's deal. Now, as for the player who OBJ is right now, I talk about the numbers going down drastically in Cleveland, and you compare that with what he did with the New York Giants, it really isn't a comparison, and honestly, these are two different careers to a certain degree. Played 59 games in the Mecca of New York City, averaged 6.6 receptions per game, almost 93 yards per game, an average yards per catch of 14. His catch percentage, meaning the catches that he made when he was targeted, at 62.7, and he reeled in 44 touchdowns over 59 games. Then you take a look at his Cleveland tenure, really a completely different player. A couple of reasons for that. Didn't get along with, I should say, with Kevin Stefanski as well as Baker Mayfield. His role in the offense was different, and a lot of injury issues have occurred with OBJ over the last couple of years, most namely, that torn ACL that he suffered in 2020. A couple of big numbers here. His receptions went down, his yards per game went down, average yards per catch down just a tad. Catch percentage has gone down from 63 almost to 54. Drops have also been a problem for OBJ during Cleveland and at times in New York, and hasn't been the same touchdown producer either in less games, of course, 59 to 29, but the touchdowns going down from 44 to 7. I still think that OBJ has some juice left, but here's the big question that Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch are going to ask themselves. Is it worth the squeeze? The production has gone down. The injury issues have gone up, and it seems as though any team OBJ has been on, drama has followed him. Whether it's his pops talking about Baker Mayfield missing him, going through the All-22 film, whether it's him cutting off communication with Kevin Stefanski, not getting along with Eli Manning, the list goes on and on and on. Now, teammates have vouched for OBJ, saying the guy puts in so much work. We really, really like him as a teammate. But other teammates are just kind of tired of the extra antics. And a franchise sometimes doesn't want to deal with some of those extra antics. And if I'm running a business, I'm running a football team, I am always willing to take a chance on talent if I have to deal with some of the extracurricular stuff. But with San Francisco, it's a tricky situation because he's an expensive player at that current contract, even though there's no guaranteed money. And again, it's the injury problems and the dip in production that has me concerned just a bit. Here's another thing to factor in. Oftentimes when veterans get out of a sticky situation in which they're not enjoying, they get rejuvenated by a change of scenery. And OBJ could get rejuvenated and get re-energized by a change of scenery within a new offense, playing for a new quarterback, and that extra motivation, that rejuvenation, could help him become a better player. Could he become the player that he once was? It has happened before. With who? Randy Moss. Randy Moss had a disastrous couple of year stint with the Oakland Raiders in 2005 and 2006. You can categorize and pinpoint that OBJ's tenure in Cleveland has been a disaster from 2019 to 2021. It's eerie how similar their numbers were at the respective spots in Oakland and Cleveland. Receptions per game, 3.5 for Randy, 3.9 for OBJ. Yards per game, 53.7 for both of them. Yards per catch, 15.3 to 13.9. Total yards during that span, 1,558 for Randy Moss, 1,086 for OBJ. 11 touchdowns for Randy Moss, 7 touchdowns for OBJ. What happened after Randy Moss left the Oakland Raiders? He goes to the New England Patriots and has one of the best seasons that any wide receiver has had in NFL history. Could OBJ do the same? Potentially. So vets do get rejuvenated by a change of scenery. It happened with Randy Moss about at the same time of his career. Could it happen with OBJ? Only time will tell. And if the 49ers do claim or sign Odell Beckham Jr., and he becomes what Randy Moss was for the New England Patriots, this will be a win all around. So between OBJ and another wide receiver who we've talked about a lot here on the 49ers Report in Deshaun Jackson, he went to Cal, Northern Cal ties. Who would you take if you only had to pick one? Type D for Deshaun Jackson, be appropriate. Type O for Odell Beckham Jr. Be sure to get those votes in the comment section down below. Do you want, Niner Gang, a free 49ers jersey that could be hanging up in your closet for years to come? Here's how we can get you hooked up. You go to chatsports.com/49bet, enter the promo code Niners125. You get a 125% deposit bonus. This sportsbook deal applies for anybody living anywhere in any pocket of America. Here are the steps you need to follow for us to send you a free jersey. Chatsports.com/49bet, enter the promo code Niners125. Sign up, deposit at least $100. You get that 125% deposit back, meaning you get an additional $125 back. Place a bet of any kind. It could be on the Niners this weekend against Arizona. Then you email us, jersey@chatsports.com, letting us know that you followed all of those steps. We'll send you a free 49ers jersey. Here are the jerseys on Fanatics that are available in all colors and all sizes right now that we can send you. We've sent out hundreds of jerseys so far. We can send you more. Nick Bosa, Trey Lance, as well as George Kittle. Follow all of those steps. Email us one more time at jersey@chatsports.com. Let us know you followed all of those steps. We'll get you hooked up with free 49ers gear. As for the betting odds for OBJ, I tweeted this out earlier. Give me a follow on Twitter at Chase_Senior. It's the same handle on Instagram as well. Raiders leading the pack after the whole Henry Ruggs situation at plus 350. Saints at plus 450. Bills at plus 500. Ravens at plus 550. Patriots at plus 650. They could really use a deep threat and a guy who can create after the catch. The Colts and Rams, oh, could you imagine him going to Los Angeles at plus 900? Then it's the Packers at 12-1 odds and the 49ers at 14-1 odds. Interesting stuff here with the betting odds for Odell Beckham Jr. The Niners are in the equation here, and they possibly could be in on OBJ through the NFL waiver wire. Kyler Murray's status, as we do a little bit of a preview for Sunday's game and get you up to date with his injury status, is going to be up in the air for Sunday's game at Levi's Stadium. It all starts 4:25 kickoff from Levi's in Santa Clara. We'll be doing a watch party for it right here on the channel. Subscribe and join us. Kyler Murray's status up in the air, and it could be trending toward him not playing. He has never missed a start throughout his NFL career so far. Could that change this weekend? We'll see in a couple of days. Cards Chatter tweeting this. This guy's been covering this team for 2+ decades. No Kyler Murray in the open part of Arizona Cardinals practice on Friday. He did not practice at all. It's the scenario that Cliff Kingsbury basically predicted. We previewed this earlier on in the week. That's why you subscribe to the channel. No practice at all this week for Kyler, but Kingsbury said he and Kyler could still come to a situation where Kyler does play. He would anticipate that Murray is a game-time decision. Also something to monitor, no DeAndre Hopkins, no Rashard Lawrence. If the Cardinals are without Kyler Murray, who's a front runner for MVP, the dynamic of their offense completely changes. This guy is in the thick of things for the MVP conversation, and it's easy to see why. He's completing 73% of his passes, 284.5 yards per game through the air, average yards per completion of more than 12. That's very, very elite. And he has thrown for 17 touchdowns to 7 interceptions. Some of the nerds out there like to point to analytics and say, I don't see the special with Kyler Murray. But myself, producer Marshall Green, we like to say this. We know that Kyler Murray is elite. We know that he is different because he does shit that nobody else has done before. And really, with his health status, this is a golden opportunity for the 49ers to win this game, win 2 games in a row after that 4-game losing streak, and get back on track for a playoff spot in a loaded NFC. I'm not sure the division is still in play because the Cardinals and the Rams are atop the NFC West, both at 7-1, and there you see the Niners at 3-4. Russell Wilson is coming back soon. You know Seattle is going to be dangerous, and he's had the 49ers number, so this is going to be a very compelling finish in the NFC West as well as in the NFC playoff picture, because a bunch of teams in that current situation that the Niners are in, floating around 500, trying to nab one of those wild card spots or one of those divisional playoff spots. So before we get out of here, let me ask you this, Niner faithful, who you got on Sunday? I'm riding with the Niners, especially with Kyler Murray being a little bit banged up with that ankle injury. Type SF for the Niners, ARI for the Cardinals. Enjoy your weekends, and we'll see you on Sunday for a watch party right here on the 49ers Report.